love yourself, hold your imagination with care, and find courage to share the way that we see things from where we're standing so people can more fully understand and have the courage to share where things look like from where they're standing. And part of that is being willing to not know and still try, still love, try things.
Welcome, my friends. Thank you for joining me. Today I have with me a wonderful person named Amery Kessler, who is an artist. He's a free thinker. He is someone who doesn't just think laterally, but multidimensionally. He's a musician, he's a dancer, he's an educator in the field of peace studies and nonviolence, and he's very active in reaching out into the community, making connections in unconventional ways. And I just feel really honored to have the chance to know him. And now I want to share his voice with the rest of you. Mr. Amery, thank
Wow.
you.
Thank you so much, John. I
Yeah.
wonder where we'll go from here.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think that's one of the great beauties of you is this quality of inspiration and freedom of movement, not just in your physical body, but in your mind and your willingness to express and be vulnerable and your unusual take on how we can help each other make the world a better place.
mhm.
And so I'm always inspired by you. And so it's fun to share that inspiration with everybody else.
Yeah.
And usually I like to start the conversations with saying that a number of the people who tend to watch this are activists and people kind of in the thick of it out there helping. And very often, of course, that can feel exhausting, or sometimes when we're stuck fighting our little fight, we lose a broader picture, and sometimes that can make us feel hopeless. And
Mm,
so I'm wondering for you, what is it that is bringing you a sense of hope and inspiration these days?
mm. Yeah. Okay. If I move slowly, it's probably because there are several thoughts or ideas or
Hmm.
echoes from recent events. I'll just offer two. Um, I was just hearing uh, Joanna Macy, a
Mm.
recording of Joanna Macy speaking about her reflections on Rilke's uh, writings. And as she was saying, love for life. And they were
Mm.
talking about a love for life. And I heard Joanna say, even in the crumbling. And that really hit home. And so, um, and I don't know what that's about yet. So here we are. This was just an hour or so ago.
Yeah.
I think it has to do with finding, being curious, being open to love in an expansive kind of way. When we have this judgment or feeling that things are kind of going well or
Mm.
possible, and also when they feel like we're judging, they're not going well, or they seem impossible. I think there's something pulling at me to ask what I really, or how is the way that I might understand myself and others, or how might I show up? How might that way of being be in both cases the same or similar?
Mm.
Like what deep principles, what deep love, what deep understanding is going to kind of remain the same as things are coming together or as they're falling apart? And so that's a fresh curiosity. I think mostly it's just taking a moment to feel how cared for I felt hearing those words, even in the crumbling.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's maybe the fun that I have with being an artist or whatever that is being able to take little nuggets and just sit with them without having to fully know. So there's intention, but there's a lot of wiggle room to kind of just play. Um,
Mm.
and so then I think the best, or one of the things I'm still learning to do as an artist is to kind of ask questions or just hold curiosities instead of really form a, a thesis, or just kind of sit with things a bit longer. So that was one thing that came to mind with your question there, John. And then, yes, activists, being active, putting love into action. We are just a couple days out now from the No Kings event, or day. And I had an encounter with a few people, one in particular, a young man, maybe just early 20s. And it was around the two hands installation that maybe you know about, and we could speak a little bit more about.
I'm looking forward to it.
Couldn't have planned it, yet there was some intention to make that possible. I just saw so much courage and wisdom springing up from this encounter that I had with this other person's story. So still sitting with that, and yeah. So where do we go from here? I don't know if everyone can see, but I'm feeling a bit fascinated by the blue tips on my fingers. I just had a pen explode, maybe as if to say, don't take any more notes or anything. I was just jotting one thing down before sitting down with you. So maybe that's it. Yeah.
The inspiration that you were trying to put onto the paper is now literally at your fingers.
Just like let it go.
That's right.
They're on the, yeah.
So you find a lot of inspiration through other writers and the other activists and inspirational authors in the field. And you seem to have taken a lot of inspiration from Barbara Deming's Two Hands of Nonviolence. For the people that don't know anything about that, do you mind talking about it a bit?
I'm still learning about the depth, but in Barbara Deming's story and so on. But Barbara Deming has this metaphor, or coined the metaphor, the two hands of nonviolence. One being a hand that
the blue hand
will say, I will not cooperate with injustice. I will not cooperate with any kind of harm. I will resist. And then on the other hand, staying open to humanity, to seeing the other person, if it's in the conflict with another person, to seeing that person as a human, as a part of ourselves, as difficult as that is to realize. And so to have both of those, I'm convinced more and more, and understanding more and more by people who are practicing this more than I have over decades, that this is the way to truly transform, to not just only accept, because we can't have that, and not to only reject, but to figure out how to reject what's not working for us while holding what is inherently us.
Right.
Or, so I'm reminded by about, in that way, it's difficult work. So maybe we could talk about that, like scaling things or being on this path. Because a lot of us, or me, on different days are like, how do we stay open when it hurts so much? But I think that's exactly the work that we're called to do. I was going to say, Thich Nhat Hanh's writing, Call Me by My True Names, I think for me resonates with that. Being able to speak about how it might be a difficult thing to realize, but we're not so different, or we're not disconnected from that which we might really want to transform the most. We might be in dire need of transforming the most.
That's right.
And as much as we can reference names and all this, what I like about, okay, so the two hands, that's a metaphor. I've made these banners of the two hands. And I think as a thing in the world, for me, they function as a way to let different interpretations come together. So it's not just me. You mentioned educator, and I don't know if education means like learning with a bunch of people who know quite a lot, then I do feel that that way. I feel like I'm in such a process of being able to share more of what I understand now with nonviolence, but the richest thing is understanding how much collectively
Mm-hmm.
um, we all have to offer. So people are going to have, I think, different ways of describing um, resisting and staying open. Um, I think we could all talk about how do we keep the integrity of that, the heart of that intact, and let the way that we talk about that, the way that we practice that vary depending where we are in different uh, parts of the world, different ages, different cultures, all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And of those qualities, the one that says, no, I won't participate, and yet I recognize that human quality that we both share and honor that and want to help you nourish that. Of those two, are you finding any particular mm, ways that are helping you either encourage and heal those qualities in yourself to strengthen that ability within yourself?
Mm.
And what have you found helpful or think might be helpful for people who are having difficulty with either one or the other? Because very often we're either good at one or the other, but not usually
Mm-hmm.
both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I love the question. It points us toward practice because
Mm-hmm.
we've got this like symbolic, and then we've got this need for action, and so how do I practice with this? And that's the beauty too, and I think that's where some joy can spring up even in times of conflict or of I guess trouble, um, because there is something about having the agency to understand and understanding, that kind of joy
Mm.
um, that can be realized. Um, Practicing within myself, even having that understanding, is an aha moment for me. Like I can picture Kazu Haga saying in the Third Harmony film something along the lines of, a lot of us see that there are problems out there that we'd like to change, and there's a time and place for that, but also looking inward I don't know what he says exactly, but looking inward is where we can start, or it's also in here. And so for me, in here means what am I seeing even with my intentions or my thoughts and my own behaviors? How am I contributing even at a different scale, or how am I not fully seeing how I'm actually um, contributing
Mm-hmm.
passively or actively um, to an injustice? And then what can I do to kind of resist or not cooperate with that, not water those seeds, and in fact water the seeds like of a deeper understanding of my capacity for love, or a deeper understanding of my humanity, maybe not my little island self, but seeing that we even have that understanding, or I do, that I go through these spells. I think that's what it is noticing in myself stuff that I don't really want to notice. Like how have I not really been that open to a partner or a family member or a neighbor, and then it goes on and up in scale. But I think as it comes closer to home, it's more clear
Mm.
that it goes hand in hand, that there's going to be more healing from both. Negative self-talk comes up. I have a way of just not doing enough, shouldn't have said this thing. What if I
Yeah.
say something wrong? What if I don't? And to just notice how ineffective that is, to also be open to understanding that that maybe had a time and place at some point in my journey, and then how to work with that awareness to really transform and not cooperate with, or to when we say to not cooperate with injustice, it's not really only a no. It's not a no to the person, it's a no to the action.
Yeah.
And so to not cooperate with that part of myself is to just release that action, is that's not serving me anymore. So
Yeah.
relationships are a big teaching tool for me, to really take a look at how I'm showing up in relationships or not, and what I'd like to change. So I think you brought it back to like my personal world, and I think I even moments ago said home, as if this is home. But how interesting to start thinking about expanding our sense of home. Like once we realize how to care for one part of home, how to keep that expansiveness growing outward until we realize, oh yes, we all share this home together. Yeah.
So important. And I feel like that quality of acceptance that you're mentioning, that maybe these ideas or that negative self-talk or these behaviors, that maybe they had a place at one point, but then they kind of get stuck. And in the same way that we want to be compassionate toward and accept ourselves, while maybe rejecting the more negative qualities that we're just trying to heal. And they probably had a place in our lives. They're trying to help in some way, but it's an old, unskillful habit or something. And that's clear when we look around and we go to these rallies or protests or conventions where people are wrestling with each other. And very clearly we can recognize that the person who has maybe a really bad idea, we'll say some incredibly violent idea that's just echoing through them from something they heard or taught when they were young, they are distinct from the idea. We can see their humanity and recognize that they are us. We would be exactly them in the same situation, we have that shared human quality that we can love and embrace, so that they feel seen and accepted while rejecting a really bad idea. And if we can do it within ourselves, that's a really wonderful training ground for being able to do it on the larger stage with other people, maybe being a bit louder. Although I don't know what's more loud than the voice in our own head. So maybe they're equal.
Yeah. There's something that you said there about, well, it got me thinking about vulnerability, and you mentioned vulnerability early off. And I think we're hovering around something where vulnerability becomes power, maybe the power of noticing. So the vulnerability might be admitting that part of ourselves that we don't like, or that we're hurting, or that we're doing this action from a place of hurt. That's the connection, is that maybe the negative self-talk or the kind of wrong thinking, wrong being, not serving us or harmful to others. Maybe that served the time and place, or maybe it's an ineffective way of saying help or ouch. And a lot of us, I mean, me anyhow, even with just a wonderful family and in so many ways, like a wonderful and caring life, still, it's not as easy to say, ouch, I'm hurting, like I'm feeling actually awful about this, and to just say that as a feeling instead of, and so as an alternative, it's this like outward harmful action that by having the courage to stop that action and be open to our humanity, which might be these ways that our needs aren't being met or haven't been met, that's where the transformation I think I've seen start to take place in myself. And I think then it starts to click that's how we could even imagine how to hold this shape, this presence for and with people who are also with actions that are just beyond our comprehension in a lot of ways.
Mm. Mm. I'm curious about, because you tend to be a very practical person. You are, you may not approach things directly, but you are constantly out there doing things to support others. And I see you and hear you constantly engaged in ways of helping people to either see themselves more clearly or to support others and making connections that they can't make otherwise. And so, for instance, one of the things I'm thinking about is your contact
The
dancing.
contact improv.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you mind talking about that a bit?
Oh, sure. Help me out, because we could go down different
Oh, sure.
stretches
Yeah.
with
Well,
this. But
I'm wondering about that quality of, again, sensing each other's humanity, sensing our own, the willingness to move either literally and figuratively in ways that we otherwise wouldn't have without that shared contact.
mhm.
Um, Practicing our ability to sense and to be vulnerable and to be open. And yeah, but it feels as though so often I have these discussions with people, and very often they're either in the world of like contemplative meditation or intellectual philosophical discussion, but very rarely do I get to talk about it with people from this physical school. And so I'm
Yeah,
curious what you've learned.
I love it. Um, I think what you're saying, let's hold the word open, because something about that spoke
Mm,
or lit me up. And that embodiment is really, really big, because there is a lot up here and I can get stuck just kind of mulling things over.
mm,
I love contemplating and, but another love I have is understanding how things work through metaphor, often like mechanical metaphors, this
mm.
very physical presence kind of metaphor. And the body bridges those for me. So to be able to embody a practice that hovers around a lot of the values that we're talking about, or shares, I guess, hovers around, shares the values that we're talking about in nonviolence, for instance, cooperation, um, co-creation. Um, that's been a big learning tool for me in understanding nonviolence, and also you mentioned something about helping people, and it it's it's that when you said that, I was like, oh, I guess I do. But the way I experience it is that, like, I'm genuinely interested in how people are thinking or understanding the world in ways that I might know, or kind of, and I like drawing parallels
Mm.
or figuring out how they connect. So drawing parallels between the world, the principles of nonviolence, and contact improv, for instance, just opened up all these interesting threads. And I don't even know where to start.
Can you tell
Um,
us what contact improv is for people that
I will
haven't?
try. Yeah, this is a movement form that I think I've understood, and I wish I could have some of my contact
Yeah.
friends here with me to maybe at some point help.
We should have done this interview when we were together, and then I could have practiced with you.
Yeah, yeah. Um, it's a form of movement that uh, emphasizes presence and co-creation. I haven't heard it said exactly like that, but it, I'm, it's different in the way of other dance forms that I know of, and in that there aren't specific steps that you're following, anything like that, any kind of choreography. It's a lot about um, connecting with ourselves, connecting with the floor physically,
Mm.
and then mentally and emotionally, those things kind of follow, but really being physically present, sometimes just as simple as standing and understanding all the weight shifts that are going on in our body, and that we're in constant contact with the floor, and that's our first relationship, and that floor is holding all these other relationships or other people connecting with the floor. And then we have the opportunity or the experience of connecting with each other and following the movement into, I guess I would like to say, the unknown, or being open to the unknown. So following or releasing my idea of what should happen or expectation enough where something else can arise when someone else is doing that and meeting me there.
When you say something else, do you mean something else emotionally, a new kind of movement?
This is also up for all kinds of different discussions, but I would say really keeping it as simple as bodies in space sharing weight is that's a great place to start. And then if there are actual experiences that come out of that, or metaphors or symbolic action, those could be other discussions, and that does happen. So in a lot of ways, that same kind of very physical sport-like dance, which it's been referred to as, also brings in conversations about self-awareness, awareness of others, telescoping awareness of the group, of the space, of those who have come before us or who will be there after us, consent, a lot of really rich discussions that open up into all kinds of ways that we participate with our everyday lives. We'll have to do maybe a contact improv where we can give more credit to where all of this is kind of rooted and where it is now.
Sure.
I'm surprised to even be speaking about it, because as an artist, I was so much a maker of things. And I think I kind of fell into contact improv, maybe in a couple different ways, but one had to do with the sense of encountering or being in relation with others. But in my world, it was making things or scenarios, like objects that were kind of game-like or asked for cooperation in order to work. I was making these things as an excuse or a reason or a way to just be present with people.
Yeah.
We probably wouldn't achieve anything in particular or make anything in particular or win or lose that clearly, but it was some thing I would make to ask people to come together.
I love that you do that. I think it's really important that you're constantly helping make those connections and helping people share and communicate in ways that they otherwise might have trouble doing, especially if they've been isolated like so many of us have been. And like you're talking about this physical expression leading to other qualities of awareness. In my own world, I wasn't introduced to peace and compassion through philosophy, as so many people were, or through, maybe they just have an especially large compassionate tendency, and then that leads them toward peace and nonviolence. I was led to it through martial arts and through physical movements that were designed to guide people into those spaces. And so for me, the physical world was my introduction. It was my great teacher of learning how to sense and understand myself and others and relationship, which shifted the way that my capacity for connection and compassion engaged with the world, which changed my mind. So all of these methods that you use, whether they're physical and sensory or visual or musical, I think that they touch a different part and will reach in and connect with people in ways that they didn't expect. And it's something I really appreciate about your work. And one
Mm.
of the things that you showed me, although we didn't have the chance to play,
Mhm.
what is the mirror checkers.
Yeah,
Do you mind talking about that a little bit?
sure.
So cool.
Yeah, the mirror checkers are a game of checkers played through a pane of glass,
Mhm,
a vertical pane of glass, like a window.
mhm,
And so I've had several iterations of these. One is very portable, where I can go to different storefront windows or bus stops or these different architectural, usually public space dividers, and set up checkerboards that are held against the window, transparent checkerboards with magnetized pieces on either side. And
mm,
so, John, if you and I were to play, you would have a set, I would have a set, and we'd have to set up the board together and then choose who's who, and then play according to the typical rules as if we were playing against each other. But we'd have to cooperate with each move uh, in order for the pieces to hold to each other. You need the person on the other side to help
mm.
complete the move. So
So
as
the
you,
magnets hold the board on.
the magnets hold the board
Mm,
together, and in a sense, I kind of loosely think about in this way: the object is the choreographer of us, basically just standing there offering this shared presence and mirroring of each other. And as we play out this winning and losing, the game pieces disappear from the board and the board falls away. So it's
so beautiful.
playful, it's rich for me. I'm thinking about or wondering about where are we looking? Are we looking at each other? Are we looking through? Are we able to see each other through the object of our attention in a way? Um, and you said again, like you mentioned, John. I'm holding it. It feels good. Hear you say that I have this to offer people, but I'm looking back at like when I made this or what. And I think it's me like looking for how to find lessons. It's like putting things out there to find where my teachers are, and they're everywhere
Mm,
in a
mm.
way, or the opportunities to learn are. So, and I think there's something about I don't know if I even have the words for it, but it can kind of seem like this is about, well, it is about two people coming together, but even how I'm holding my hands right now, this is where it becomes almost humorous. This is kind of what I see. Like it's kind of an illusion that we're even coming together. Well, the illusion is that we were ever that far apart to
Yeah.
begin with. And that's this aha moment that I keep forgetting and remembering or catching glimpses of. And it's quite a dance to kind of have this understanding or question and then lose it, grapple with it. Things feel like they're crumbling,
Mm,
but to move forward and with anyhow.
mm.
So at some point, the objects disappeared. I mean, they're still there, hanging there with me. I was very, very attached to the object or a process of meeting people at a boundary,
Mm.
a piece of glass, plane of wood, a container, lying inside of a drum while people are drumming on the outside,
Ah,
hammering on one side of a wall while someone is hammering back. So this sewing through a piece of cloth while someone sends the needle back. This interest in just any exchange being enough to be like, wow, I am here. Wow, you are here,
mm.
and we need each other. Or I'm alone, or I'm not alone. Like these kind of, um, and so it's not so much about what we're building in these moments for me, or who's winning, or it's just the most subtle, like noticing just what's here, like just what's here in this moment. There was really something about a boundary being a connection point for me. Maybe socially, maybe some way that I am just comfortable relating with people. Somehow it was a way for me to leave a comfort zone, get out into public and meet people, but also have a comfort zone. Like, I'm over here and we don't need to talk, or we might not even be able to see each other. And in a way that was a comfort zone or a curiosity to not need to assess all these things about each other, but just sit with the presence. And at some point, what I'm saying about the object leaving is I got a little more comfortable leaving my comfort zone with that object and experiencing this through the contact improv dance. So there, in a lot of ways, that sense of arriving and at first really just caring for self and other without needing to know exactly what next. I think for me is showing up with the way that I experience contact improv. Yeah.
It's really exciting to hear about, and something that awoke a recognition in me that you were, when you mentioned your interest in borders and boundaries and how we make relationships across. And within ecology, we talk about it a lot in Taoism. It's where those two seemingly opposite sides come together. That's where life happens, yin and yang. And in the middle, that's what the definition of qi is. One definition is that interaction between yin and yang. That's where life happens. And even in ecology, the border of a forest with a field, most life exists in those spaces. The ocean meeting the shore, there's that meeting point. That's where most life happens. Whenever these seeming two opposite things come together, whether in climate shifts or in the world around us, that's where most life occurs. That's where things change and get really active. And so the willingness to find those seeming lines and then to actually encourage those interactions to make something new come out of that. And it's always a really interesting idea that you take, how do you get a new idea? You take two old ideas, you rub them together, you get a new idea. You want a new person, you take two separate people, you rub them together, you get a new person. And it's always this quality, this is where life comes from. And so your willingness to step into those places, to find new ways to generate something is really inspirational. And I think it's a strength that you have. Because it can be scary to step into those liminal spaces in between where there isn't anything yet, and just being willing to see what comes out of it. Because if you're coming in with preconceptions, a presupposed idea of what you're going to get, then you instantly limit the possibilities. But the willingness to open and to wait and then see what happens, and trusting that something nourishing will come out of it is, or at least something new,
Yeah.
is exciting.
Yeah. That word trust comes up. Or I have a question. You're bringing to light something that I'm trying to figure out for myself, and maybe in the arts sometimes, and then in life. I wonder if you have any thoughts about how do we stay open to the unknown, but not disregard what we can learn from the past. Or how can we maybe not have a specific expectation, but show up with some intention? Or where is there space for intention? And as much as I wonder if something about this for me is what my craft that I'm working toward is as an artist. It's not necessarily, or my skill, it's not necessarily exquisite woodworking techniques. It's not necessarily just the most fantastic movement qualities. It's a lot of these might be getting off track a little bit, but if there's something that I'm trying to keep developing, I think it's an understanding for how I can be intentional and have something to offer from like my place in the world, who I am as a person with personal interests, but stay open to other stories or the unknown, or not have to know where this is going to go. And I'd like to bring in nonviolence into this conversation. You know, if I'm seeing it from having these kind of relational creative experiences or works with people, how do those parallel nonviolence? So I'm thinking about how in conversations I've had with people, definitely at the Meta Center with Michael and Stephanie, Rivera comes to mind. Like, how do we show up with intentionality or purpose, but not stay totally attached? This is my interpretation from what I'm gleaning and understanding. Not stay so attached to a particular outcome.
That's the skill, yeah. And actually, it was one of Gandhi's important rules for Satyagraha, right? That the non-attachment to, I don't know if you would use that word, but don't be attached to the outcome of what you're trying to do. Rather, cultivate peace and nonviolence, and then trust that power that comes from peace itself, the power that comes from love, is doing the work in the world.
Yeah.
And he might use a word like God or something,
Mm-hmm.
but that quality of cultivation is part of what you've been spending your time doing. Because like you were saying, that you're not sure if you've become a super masterful woodworker or something like that. But even when I studied with a master workman of traditional Japanese carpentry. And I apprenticed under him for some years. And his entire goal, he said, wasn't to try to make me good at this kind of woodwork, but his goal was to turn me into a carpenter. And they're different things. One is about cultivating the way that I see, the way that I understand, or my capacity to work with my tools well, to understand wood at more than just an intellectual level. Those kinds of qualities that make a carpenter. And then the specific skills come later once you start to work with whatever, joinery or something like that you're doing. But his job was different than what I would eventually try to do, as a master carpenter or something like that. And maybe as activists, as peace workers, whatever terminology we choose to use, as artists, our job is to cultivate ourselves as artists or as educators or as people of compassion, and using whatever tools we have, whether it's through contact improv and movement and learning to relate, or through using any kind of tool that we have that increases our self-knowledge and awareness, our open-heartedness, we become people who are better able to then go out and do what we need to do. And so just that quality of recognition that part of what we're doing is growing, and then we trust that the actions that come from that growth are useful. We don't have to try to intend anything in particular. We just do our best without holding on to what we think that should be.
Yes.
And so we just continue to grow and heal, and the world comes with us.
Yeah. It helped me to see you go holding like this, because because there's something about non-attachment that I'm curious about. And this sprung up from some recent curiosities we had in our contemplations about contact improv. How do we let go? What does it mean to let go of those expectations, or to kind of pause and reassess? Like, and there's something about maybe holding lightly coming up, or letting go, but not necessarily like denying. So not clinging to maybe sounds like a better fit. So there's a way of kind of being with something that might be emotion, but not clinging to it in a way that we're not able to see some broader perspective of like, is this still working is this still shared in the way that it needs to be shared? Is this still connected to my values and principles, or our values and our principles? And so this is where all these aha moments or language about my work is coming up still, or came up in studying with Michael and Stephanie and so many people that just join a lot of the screenings and offerings courses at the Meta Center. You and Nick, who's been, we could go on the list of all of our presenters, but I don't want to leave anyone out. It's just what we talk about a lot in the nonviolence conversations that I've been a part of are the principles and the strategies of nonviolence. And one way that I'm understanding that, maybe we're out on a long thread here, but I'll try to bring it together.
Trust, have faith.
This clinging, like this holding that you did, to me, when I saw this is like holding something out in front of us, where we might not know where that's going to go. So maybe not imagining it not to be there, but not holding it so tightly or clinging to it, and instead clinging to truth, or this understanding of ahimsa, or which we're understanding that I heard you say love or care. So ahimsa, my understanding, is the power that arises when we have let go of any intention, any action of harm, or any intention to harm.
Right. We've healed that part of ourselves.
When we've healed that part of ourselves, or when we're moving from a place that is not that. That to me seems like a truth that we could all agree on, whether we call it love or God or energy, and whether we validate it through science or spirituality or anything like that. Here's how the brain works. Now we're going to be in a basketball court. My experience with athletics, I'm thinking now about pivoting and how we have these outward motions, but staying rooted. Like, where are we pivoting from? It's just some kind of embodied movement that I feel. And with nonviolence, I feel, or the way that I understand it, is that if we're rooted in, or can root with our values and our principles, these principles of cooperation, of offering dignity to others, of seeing our interconnectedness, we can have these outward strategies that we're not attached to. And the importance of not being attached might be that, and instead clinging to our truths, our values, and our principles, is that if it's not working, we ourselves as people don't get caught up in a judgment of failure. We're able to just keep going with what we now realize. We can assess our strategy and reinvent our strategy, instead of giving up on our principles and values. So I think learning about the difference and the interconnectedness of principled nonviolence, of what those values and principles are, and then the strategies, helps put a lot into motion for me and give me a place to experiment for myself. Yeah. It's so expansive.
It is
for me. And I get excited. I don't know if you can see, like, in the way that I'm kind of like over and over again realizing these things for myself. And I'm just imagining, I'm so, I don't know if humbled isn't quite the right word. I'm just so motivated actually by people who know this because they're doing this work and have been doing it for decades. So that's a big part of being that's a big part for me of joining these conversations of nonviolence and these trainings, or holding space, facilitating conversations, is getting to meet people who know this from their own experiences, healing, transforming themselves, going through the paradigm shifts personally and socially. It's just been such an awesome, I'm calling it a conversation or world shared world.
I think so
Yeah.
too. Yeah, and for the people that might not know, um, you one of the ways that you give back to the community and you help to educate and share what we've been learning about peaceful activism and nonviolent communication and these kinds of skills are come through the presentation of this wonderful documentary, The Third Harmony. And all the links are down below. We can agree that everybody should go and watch it and take part in these screenings. And it's been wonderfully nourishing for the both of us to watch these people around the world who are taking their whole lives to make the space safer and better for all of us. And the inspiration that come from people like Michael Nagler, who've spent a good portion of his whole life to spread these teachings and understanding that there is a better way. Hey, look, we don't even have to just imagine. Here it is. And then for you and I to get to share those concrete, practical tips and suggestions and understandings we just feel so fortunate. And so for everyone listening to this, go check down below for the links for that. Join us on a screening.
For the experience of seeing the film and the experience for connecting with people, right after the film, we have a conversation, and then ongoing, we have groups that are meeting up to discuss mull over the Third Harmony Collective. And it just expands from there, learning about other groups doing similar work. And that's a big part of it too. Part of seeing the film is not only noticing what's possible, but naming and noticing what we're already doing that is aligned with change and transformation, this paradigm shift toward a world that is healing itself. Mm-hmm. We are a part of that, and people are doing that, and not only capable of and have the potential, but they are. So to name that and kind of move from there, I think, is a really special part of seeing the film.
It is. Yeah, that there's already this momentum of love and creation happening in the world. And when we talk about building trust not just that our conversational threads will find their way back, but to trust that the cultivations that we're doing and the work that we're sharing, even if you're just slapping magnetic checkers boards on a plane of glass, that all of this work that we're doing to build connection and build empathy in the world, even if it doesn't obviously work, in the larger sense, it doesn't suddenly create world peace. It does work, whether it's for cultivating for ourselves or just between that moment of connection between two people that would have otherwise have remained separate, isolated. And those micro movements in the world add up. And when we have the chance to clearly see that they're working, and it gets labeled and named, and we get to look at the statistics and how things shift, we go, oh my gosh, this actually does work. And it works better than the violence and the conflict and the argumentative disagreement that we see all around us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really inspiring to get to take part in that.
That kind of trust of personal experience, not just taking someone's word for it or only hoping, but to be able to experiment, to try to move through the world with this kind of perspective and then see how it feels afterward. I think it's worth mentioning that I'm seeing a little bit of both. Maybe there's not always the chance to see where the actions are going to land or what change they're going to put into motion or achieve. On the other hand, I think that's a big part of experimenting with nonviolence principles and movements, is there is a degree where it is more like a science, and we can try something and see for ourselves how it is working, especially with micro movements, as you said, and scaling up and out from there. Gosh, it goes on and on. That trust is something I think I'm really excited for people to find in these worldwide movements that we're seeing, like the No Kings rallies, where it's actually not maybe a whole lot of conflict, I think it's a whole lot of acknowledging a shared dignity, acknowledging the cooperation, and the idea that we're all in this together.
Mm-hmm.
Something I'm excited for is seeing us all understand we're there collectively and we're also there individually. Meaning we have work to do to understand how to unify under strategies where all needs will get understood and met. But in a global movement, in a strategy, or in a movement like we would need to create more safety, security, health, and well-being for people. Showing up in a way that we can unify around a particular cause or strategy as a large group, with the sense of people power, alongside also our person power that Michael Nagler brings to our attention a lot. How do we each show up under our own experience, conviction, and understanding, so that collective movement is empowered by each of our own understandings of where we're moving from, that those values and principles that keep us rooted together. That's perhaps how we could have a more lasting effect. Because one thing that we can be thinking about is not only what we don't want, but what happens when we win. And when we win, win meaning when we succeed in caring for each other, sharing dignity with each other, how are we still present, showing up, from this sense of home and this expansive sense of home, both harmonizing with each other.
So important. Yeah, those are we talk about the three harmonies.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I don't want to miss asking you about is, as an artist, as a creator, as an unusual human in the world, there's a lot of people who share the same path as you. And again, many of us, we feel disconnected, we feel disempowered. We're not quite sure how to engage ourselves to be part of this larger movement in the world. And so for people who share the same skills and perspective and interests as somebody like you, what would you say to them in order to support them in their movement toward becoming part of this global wave of healing?
This is a mix between a blank and maybe getting close to something that I need to hear myself.
We can take
so
as long
deeply
as you
that
like.
I might be like kind of feeling it right now. But love yourself. Hold your imagination with care, and find courage to share the way that we see things from where we're standing, so people can more fully understand, and have the courage to share where things look like from where they're standing. And part of that is probably having to do with being willing to not know and still try, still love, try things. I'm personally holding this vision from a couple days ago where I had the two hands installed in a park just outside of where the rallies were happening. And so it was a little different vibe. It was people were coming and going, but it was kind of off to the side. And this is where I met a new friend that just had this courage of coming up to me and saying, like, what is this? What are these two hands? Did you make this? And we ended up talking for like an hour and a half. And somewhere in there, he showed me like a song that he had just recorded, a rap that he had just recorded. And he just taught me so much about being open. And he was both saying things that he had a lot of conviction with and sharing that, and then sharing other things that he was less convicted of, or less sure about, and kind of just like, yeah, I probably won't make something like that again. And that kind of freedom to just try and move through creativity, I think, is really important. So to loosen up, have fun, share from a place of love, um, it it matters, it belongs, and yeah, I guess in a roundabout way, all those things come up. And see that it's not that different from other people. Like I get what you're saying. I think, John, in this world of creativity or seeing the arts or something like that, it does help to have these affinities. And then another beautiful thing is to find the parallels where they slip right into everyday life things that a lot of people can relate to. So that's another thing I have fun with, is like love the form of art that you have, and then where's the edge, where's the boundary, and where does it um not need the label, where does it just kind of mix with I think in the Third Harmony film I can hear someone saying like it's about being an artist of your humanity, and I'm trying to figure out exactly what that is. Seems like a good thing.
It seems like a very good thing.
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend.
Gosh, thank you, John. Yeah.
I have so much fun talking to you.